After sailing over 50,000 miles around the world on our 37-foot sailboat Florence, we have been working flat out to prepare her for our new adventure.
But delays in that refit have forced us to change our plans. Join us as we finally set off and share our new plans for sailing in 2024.
After 8 months of refit, we are finally done. The final piece of the puzzle is just about to arrive, and as soon as that is here, we can leave on the start of a new adventure. It's not quite what we planned, more on that later, but first let's get Florence ready to go.
We just had the phone call to say that Florence's sails are going to be here in half an hour. Once we've got them on board and checked they fit, there is nothing stopping us from setting sail again.
Rowley Tasker Sails have supplied 3 new head sails for Florence.
We have an upgraded replacement genoa, a new staysail to work with our new furler on the inner stay, and also a new storm jib to work with the furler.
We hope the new staysail is going to radically change how we sail Florence. But first, we need to get them all on board and check that they fit. We're a little anxious putting these sails on, in case we made an error in the measurements.
So this is our brand new staysail on a furler. This is the sail that I'm most excited about using. Really excited to have it on the boat. Can't wait to go out sailing and try this. It looks beautiful even just here on the dock.
It is all go. Annabelle, the rep from Rowley Tasker UK, only dropped the sails off an hour and a half ago, and we are on our way. If everything goes well, we're just going to keep going. So I've just made up our sea berth, and we're going to be sailing overnight for the first time in over 8 months. We're leaving Portsmouth Marina, which has been our base before we move back on board Florence and get ready for the next adventure, but we are ready to go.
If all goes well with the sails, the next time we come through this lock will be in 6 months' time, having sailed thousands of miles in challenging waters. Once clear of the marina, we hoisted Florence's mainsail, unfurled the new staysail for the first time, and headed out of Portsmouth Harbour.
Feels so good to be moving again and sailing Florence. She's the Florence that we know and love, but better because she's had so many upgrades. Can't tell you how good it feels to be out here. The new sails not only fit really well, but they also look amazing, and the new furling system is working perfectly. So there's no turning back. We're actually going to head out of the Solent, head east and along the south coast of the UK. We're going to try and make as much progress as we can whilst the weather is really good. And so we better get into, I guess, the routine of sailing again. It's been a while since we cooked at sea on Florence, but hopefully we're going to make that a bit easier for myself than normal because I've been able to get some cooked chicken, and I just had time to chop up some vegetables really quickly before we left. So we're having a really easy chicken and vegetable pasta.
Feels so good to be back out sailing again. We've got an absolutely beautiful evening for it. Bit late in the day to go sailing, I guess, on your first test sail of the new sails, but we just wanted to get going as soon as we got them on, and they are beautiful, I have to say. Really, really happy with them so far. Looking forward to testing them further. But it's just a beautiful evening to be out on the boat, and it just feels so natural to be back out on the ocean sailing on Florence again. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's like the final piece of the puzzle just slotting into place. We're both saying how we don't want to go to bed. We know we have to because we're going to have to sail overnight, but yeah, it just feels so content and happy.
Leaving late in the afternoon as we did meant that we were pretty much straight into night watches. We found ourselves slipping back into our old routines on board. But there are a lot more obstructions to avoid when coastal sailing. A wind shift and a wind farm in our path meant that we were up on the foredeck to jibe the pole in the dark.
Ready?
Ready?
Morning found us reaching east in ideal gentle conditions.
It's always a real joy for a sailor to sail with new sails. Our Genoa is different cloth, so it's actually much lighter, so it sets really well in the light winds we had earlier on. And the staysail is a different cut, and I'm absolutely loving the cut of this. And we don't normally sail with both of them up at once. We just got the wind right on the beam, right on the right angle, and I thought I'd give it a go. And it's given us an extra half knot or so, so I love playing around with different sail settings.
We couldn't have wished for a better start to our shakedown sail, and we continued on towards the white cliffs of Dover.
As we passed Dover and rounded the corner to sail north, the wind built. So we put the Genoa away, reefed the mainsail, and put the new staysail to the test as we tacked upwind inside Goodwin Sounds.
Although Florence was going nicely upwind, The forecast was for very strong winds overnight, so we decided to pull into Ramsgate to let it pass through in the hope of more favourable conditions in a few days' time. We secured Florence and settled down to wait it out. We are very happy with how this 120-mile, 24-hour shakedown sail went after the long refit.
So we pulled in here to the marina in Ramsgate because as we came around the corner the wind turned more northerly and it was actually forecast to gust over 40 knots that night. We didn't fancy sailing across the Thames estuary, dodging wind farms and sandbanks with 40 knots on the nose. So we stopped here for a couple of nights. The weather has now improved considerably and we're getting ready to move on. But stopping here is probably a good opportunity to tell you about a big change of plans that we're making.
When we came back from our circumnavigation, we wanted something else big to focus on, and we wanted to sail north right up into the Arctic Circle. But if you've watched these videos, then you'll know that the refit has taken a lot longer than we had hoped. And we've also not been able to focus the time that we needed to get the right permits, permissions, and also insurance for sailing as far north as we wanted to. So we are well behind our schedule, and if we were where we were hoping to be at this time, we would actually be as far north as northern Norway at the moment. So we've had to rethink our plans.
We still are planning to sail to the Arctic, just not this season. We're actually going to postpone our plans to sail up into the Arctic Circle until next season to give us the time to start earlier in the season and to actually do all the planning we need to get up there and make the most of it. So that leaves the question of what are we going to do this season? Well, we're bringing our plans for the next year forward to this year, essentially just swapping the two around, and we're going to do a circumnavigation of the British Isles. Now, when we first realised that we were going to have to do that this year instead of next year, we were a little bit disappointed about the Arctic trip not happening. But the more we look into the going around the British Isles, the more excited we've got about this trip this season.
The coastline and the outlying islands of the UK are absolutely stunning, but they also bring some challenging sailing. There are big tides, there are overfalls, and the weather is very changeable. So it's certainly going to keep us busy and interested over the next season. And it's something that we're both really looking forward to because we haven't spent any time cruising around the UK, either together or on Florence, and we only had a couple of weeks before we left for our circumnavigation, so we're both really looking forward to seeing more of our home country.
I actually raced a boat non-stop around Britain and Ireland way back in 2006, but of course you didn't stop and see anything on that trip, and I'm really looking forward on this trip to stopping in some of the stunning remote anchorages, especially the west coast of Scotland is supposed to have some of the best cruising grounds in the world. And the wildlife, I'm really looking forward to seeing some puffins, hopefully, which I've wanted to see for years. So I'm actually really excited about this trip.
It's not just the west coast of Scotland that I'm looking forward to, but I'm actually really looking forward to sailing the North Sea, which is not known for its sailing, but it's where my personal love of sailing started. It's really close to where I grew up, and it's the next leg of this journey.
So coming back to where we are here in Ramsgate, that means we are now 120 miles into our circumnavigation of the British Isles. We've chosen to go anti-clockwise for a couple of reasons. One is that we are late, as we said, and we want to get up to Scotland to make the most of the summer in the Scottish Isles, and there are slightly less ports that Florence can actually stop in up the east coast because they're quite shallow, so we won't actually get into a lot of them, which means it should be quicker to go up the east coast and then we can take our time coming back down the west coast later in the season.
A lot of people have asked us where exactly we're planning to go and where we're planning to stop. And the truth is we don't actually know. We have a very rough plan, obviously, to circumnavigate the British Isles, but we don't know yet whether or not we're going to go inside or outside of Ireland. That's going to be very time and weather dependent, as is most of the ports around the UK. And it was really good to stop here because it gave us some time to sit down and do some planning. So we now have an idea of what is available to us, at least up the east coast and as far as Shetland.
So from here we will be setting sail north, up the North Sea, towards the remote Scottish islands.
We've had a few days in Ramsgate waiting for the wind to switch around from northerlies to southerlies, which it has now done. So we're now coming out of Ramsgate wing on wing and heading north across the Thames Estuary. Forecast for today is quite changeable, light to start with, and then it's going to really pick up, and there's occasionally maybe a full 6 in the forecast later on. Hopefully we'll miss that, and then it's going to swing round so we get a nice reach across. Spring tide, so we're going to have a lot of tide against us at times and a lot of tide with us at other times. It takes about 12 hours to get across, so we get half and half on the tides. As well as having the weather and the tide to deal with, the Thames Estuary is littered with obstructions that we need to avoid. There are wind farms everywhere, shipping separation schemes, obviously lots of ships in those shipping separation schemes. So although it's only 70 miles across, we're certainly going to be kept busy. And we were planning to sail all the way up to Whitby in one hit. But the latest forecast we've looked at is quite breezy once we get around Norfolk, and we were going to have wind against tide and be beating into it, which would be really uncomfortable. And then we looked at the forecast for the following day, and that forecast has us reaching all the way up there in more moderate conditions, so that's a lot more favourable. So we're actually going to sail across the Thames Estuary and stop in Lowestoft this evening, get some rest, and then sail on the next day, which is a great thing to be able to do because we're not used to that. After all the ocean sailing where you can't pull in, it kind of feels strange to have the option of pulling into a port to take a rest.
So far, this passage has been a lot easier than we anticipated. There's been a lot less traffic than we both thought there would be, and a lot of the ships have been at anchor, so very easy to dodge. It always feels crazy to meet a big ship like this on the water, just for the sheer scale of them. You often see them when we're crossing an ocean. Every single one of those shipping containers is actually longer than Florence. So that ship is 59 metres wide and 400 metres long. Always makes us feel really tiny when we pass something that size.
We had idyllic conditions up to this point, but then it all changed. A rain squall broke with a 90-degree wind shift, and we had to rapidly reduce sail. The increase in wind was welcome to help us overcome the 2.5 knot tide against us, and it didn't last long, but it cemented our decision to pull into Lowestoft.
Entering the harbour, we found we were not the only boat to make the decision to stop here. But we eventually found a spot to raft up alongside another boat for a comfortable night with a forecast of more favourable conditions the next day.
Next time, we have a bumpy sail north, past the place where I learned to sail, and to the beautiful, historic and famous port of Whitby. For extra updates in between these bi-weekly videos, and to find out what we're up to in real time, head over to Patreon and join the crew. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to make sure that you don't miss the next episode here on YouTube.
Continuing our voyage on Florence would not be possible without the support of our patrons. Thank you to all of you, and especially to our star patrons.